Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Let's go to today's story. I am 33 years old and have been married to my wife for 5 years. However, over the past few months, it seems like she has transformed into a completely different person. When we met, we both had our lives well established. In the beginning, we shared the same values. I had attended a trade school and gained solid technical skills. I started with entry-level jobs and, over time, gained recognition in the programming field to the point where my skills surpassed my formal education. My wife, on the other hand, had a graduate degree and worked in a management position. This caused some initial tension, as I often complained about middle management, who I saw as obstacles standing between me and completing tasks. My wife, on the other hand, felt that these aspects were necessary to manage personnel and resources effectively. I was often frustrated with middle managers who viewed code developers as replaceable and set unreasonable deadlines, promised features to customers, and constantly added scope. My wife listened to my complaints, but she never met these managers directly. She used to say, "He sees things you don't." After about a year of dating, I learned not to share details about my work unless it involved something significant or negative. I always felt like she resented the fact that I didn't continue my education to get a graduate degree. She pressed this issue before marriage, but when she realized I was dealing with loans and debt, she backed out. She was in a better financial situation than I was when we got married. However, in the last 2 years, I started working for a company where the owner saw my potential and valued my work. I now earn 50% more than my wife, and my new manager is someone I get along with, despite not being a technical lead. He plays the role of a Scrum Master well and knows how to support me without getting in my way. However, this seems to have created a sense of rivalry, even though he is an excellent supervisor. For the first 4 years of marriage, we were happy and didn't discuss my problems with managers at work or the pressure to continue my education. We enjoyed our time together, going out on date nights, sharing hobbies, cooking together, reading books together, and watching movies. But now, something has changed. When the first lockdown hit us, we were both working from home. Our residence was very nice, with 3 extra bedrooms, which we considered converting into bedrooms for the children if we ever had them. One of these rooms was turned into my office when the lockdown began. Meanwhile, the second bedroom was designated as my wife's office. Even though we were both working remotely, we had very different philosophies about it. My routine consisted of getting up, eating breakfast, showering, and reluctantly putting on my suit and tie before entering my home office. I hated wearing a suit and tie, but it put me in the "this is work time" state of mind. My wife, on the other hand, had a more laid-back approach. She would simply roll out of bed, eat breakfast, throw on a t-shirt and sweatpants, and walk into her office with her iPad, playing Candy Crush in between emails. For her, it was like she was relaxing at home even though she was working. It was interesting to see how physical proximity could, in a way, create emotional distance between us. My wife had several meetings a day, and I could hear them because she kept the door open. I, on the other hand, only had 1 meeting a day, which was usually brief, and I closed my door to concentrate. 5 months ago, my wife expressed feeling offended that I closed the door during my daily meeting. I tried to explain that it was for reasons of peace and focus on work, but she interpreted it as if I was hiding something. I tried to keep our hobbies in common, but she seemed to ignore this idea, arguing that we already spent all day together. I didn't insist much, considering the confinement as something temporary, perhaps a mistake on my part. The situation worsened when her company implemented a partial reopening of the office, and she accepted the opportunity to return to work there with a new layout to ensure social distancing. I understood her, as I also missed the work environment, but my company had not yet reopened its offices. Additionally, I noticed that she began to distance herself emotionally. She started hanging out with co-workers after work, going to one of their houses for drinks. I tried to get more information, but she became secretive and closed off. Last month, during a weekend, she left her old iPad on the table and said I could clean it as she wanted to give it to her niece. I didn't think much of it, as I often did these kinds of favors for the family. When she left for another meeting, I turned on the iPad. Maybe she thought I wouldn't check and just restore it to factory settings. However, when I looked through the contents, I found text messages, photos, videos, and instant messages of her with her boss. They had been having a secret affair for 2 months, and the feeling that came over me was indescribable. My blood seemed to run cold, remembering the polygraph scene where the line went straight. I copied all the data and stored it in the cloud, the same place I used for my development projects. He left his job and began his search for a lawyer. At first, I didn't confront the situation because I wasn't sure what I would do in the face of my wife's betrayal. The strange feeling in my body made me feel like I was floating, not quite knowing what to do. She didn't seem to notice or just didn't care, as if we were already in some sort of roommate relationship rather than husband and wife. I contacted a lawyer who suggested we continue investigating while I kept my mouth shut. He also recommended that I hire a private investigator and recommended a good professional for the job. Over the past 4 weeks, we have collected evidence and he is prepared to begin the divorce process. He asked me to be patient, while my eyes were filled with anger and her indifference made everything easier. Last night my lawyer informed me that the divorce papers were almost ready. Our state was to blame, and the private detective had gathered photos, videos and messages, practically burying any possible defense of her. That night something happened to me. My eyes flared with anger when she came home late, and I can barely remember what she said. I came out and said I hoped her betrayal was worth it. She became a mean, nasty, vindictive person, claiming I wasn't emotionally present even though I was home all day, even though I worked a highly technical job. She laughed when I mentioned I had a lawyer, calling my bluff pathetic. I knew I couldn't let her leave empty-handed because even if we got divorced, she would get half my salary, so we occasionally had sex to keep things under control. She argued that we didn't have a real marriage since women could have whatever they wanted in the 21st century. The next morning, as she was leaving, I emailed my boss asking for a week off to resolve a family issue, and he agreed. I went to my lawyer's office where he had the documents ready. He brought in a process server and I questioned how he wanted the divorce petition served. My lawyer wasn't convinced, but when he realized how serious I was, he eventually agreed. The process server heard my idea and laughed too, calling me a hero. He quickly sent the process server to deliver the documents, along with something special for my wife at work. When the process server was finished, he told me that my wife was laughing and chatting with coworkers and friends when he arrived with a large box. He asked for her name, she confirmed it, and he opened the box, revealing a cake with a personalized image printed in icing. I didn't even know it was possible to do this until that moment. The image on the cake showed my wife and her boss in a compromising embrace, with the inscription, "Here's your cake, eat it," above the image. The process server placed the documents next to the cake on the table and officially announced the divorce notice. What happened next was a loud scream from her, with 8 people in the office witnessing the episode. My wife lost control, dropped the box with the cake on the floor, but the image was still visible. Some of her colleagues scolded her, and she started crying and screaming. The process server quickly walked away. My phone was full of missed calls and voicemails from her, and she didn't come home. Her mother texted me that she was staying at her house for now. Although the cake scene was dramatic, I'm starting to consider my lawyer's words. I don't know how this will end in our state, nor what the judges will decide. However, one thing is certain, what I did was surprising. Her initial reaction to looking for a lawyer and collecting evidence was fundamental, making it difficult for her to deny the betrayal, even if she tried. However, she has not made an attempt to communicate with you in this regard. She simply suggested in a roundabout way that she could have her cake and eat it too. You, in turn, ended up giving her the cake, although I really don't know if this will have any impact on her divorce process. Based on what you shared with us, it sounds like you are experiencing a state of guilt and you have all this evidence. I'm not sure if this will have legal consequences, but again, I'm not an expert. How are you feeling about this? Are you dealing with the situation? Do you think this might come back to haunt you? Anyway, how about we take a look at the update to see what happened next? Update: I'm overwhelmed by all the support I've received over the past week. I still am. time off from work, my boss decided to give me 2 weeks instead of the one I asked for. Well, he's cool. We have already divided our financial assets in half. I placed my share in an account in my name and made the necessary changes to the automatic payment of the mortgage and other credits, as directed by my lawyer. Regarding household finances, we do not have children. Additionally, I am seeking therapy to deal with the infidelity situation. I found a therapist who specialized in this area and have already had 2 sessions. I'm feeling much more balanced, although I'm still going through some difficult times. Overall, it feels like I'm going through ups and downs, but the swings are slowing down. After the cake incident, I'm definitely following my lawyer's advice from now on. He said I can choose between being happy or being right about the decisions I make. I understood that, according to him, I am not legally allowed to kick my wife out of the house, but I must record all interactions with her. She is currently living at her mother's house, but she expressed interest in coming to talk next Saturday. My lawyer suggested that if she wanted to talk, it would be best to do so in her office in the presence of her lawyers. I emailed this suggestion to her, and she responded that she did not have a lawyer. My lawyer said that Barry, a mutual friend, showed up at her office and witnessed the meeting to make sure my wife knew that this was my condition to talk to her. She accepted the proposal, so the 3 of us met in the kitchen with our phones ready to record. She began by apologizing and said she felt like she was watching a movie instead of being in control of her life. She asked if I wanted to know why, but I said it didn't matter to me anymore. She felt like she owed me a lot and mentioned that it related to my early career and the problems I had with my managers. She said that 3 older co-workers advised her to believe that I felt threatened by polite people and that I was submissive. The leader of these colleagues advised that she needed a more responsible man in her life and that I was not suitable. Regarding her work, she mentioned that only 3 people knew about the cake: her partner, her boss, and 2 other colleagues. The boss immediately closed the case and asked her to communicate only via email. Her other colleagues publicly reprimanded her for her behavior. According to her, her friends helped her see the situation in a different way, and she asked for money, claiming she was in a difficult situation. I was confused because I knew she had money in her account and didn't have many expenses while living with her mother. However, I discovered that the leader and the other 2 colleagues were blackmailing her and gave her a deadline to not reveal the sordid details to HR. She was desperate for help, and I told her things couldn't go back to normal. The situation would change drastically, and she would be better off reporting to her boss and co-workers and avoiding sleepless nights waiting for the worst to happen. She hesitated, but finally asked where that left us. I told her that there was no us anymore, that everything was over, and I advised her to find a lawyer to handle the divorce. Additionally, I suggested she seek therapy, as someone who laughed at my situation and then asked for help a week later clearly needed to resolve her own issues. She pointed to the cake, and I simply replied that yes, I was seeing someone to deal with it. She left immediately after that, without mentioning whether she will follow my guidance or try to resist pressure from her co-workers. Why are her co-workers always so nice? I believe the cake strategy worked because, as you said, it immediately brought her out of her mental fog. She acknowledged that she made a mistake, but also deserves praise for her determination not to give in to circumstances. As for the divorce, it is in the works, and she will have to decide whether to deal with the blackmail or not. I won't go into detail about the analysis of the 3 people involved, but they really did a remarkable job. She blamed them, but in reality, it was she herself who allowed them to influence her to the point of having an affair. This raises questions about her mental fragility, as it wouldn't have been so easy to get her to cheat on you if she didn't have undiscussed problems with you. Anyway, Opie, it's not her problem anymore. She needs to resolve this on her own. All I can say now is that I hope your divorce process goes without a hitch. We have reached the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.